My name is Lily, and at 8 years old, I learned that a mother's love is not unconditional. It has a price tag, and apparently I was too expensive to keep. I stood frozen in the middle of JFK International Airport, clutching a crumpled wad of $20 bills, while my mother adjusted her designer sunglasses and looked down at me with cold indifference. "You are a smart girl, Lily," she said, checking her reflection in the glass partition. "Figure it out. Just take a taxi to your Aunt Helen's house and do not make a scene." She turned on her heel and walked toward the first-class security checkpoint, her arm linked through her new husband Richard's. His two children, Tiffany and Josh, trailed behind them, laughing and pulling their matching Louis Vuitton rolling luggage. They did not look back. Not once. What my mother Cynthia did not know was that Aunt Helen had moved to Ohio 2 years ago. My mother knew this, of course, but she simply did not care. She just needed me gone so she could enjoy her honeymoon in Bali without the baggage of her past life. But here's the twist she never saw coming. That moment of abandonment did not destroy me. It saved me. Because when she returned 2 weeks later, tan and relaxed, she found my bedroom completely empty. The only thing waiting for her was a legal notice taped to the front door that would cost her everything she had just married into. Before I tell you how I went from a discarded child at gate 24 to the woman who took them down, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever had to build your own family from the ashes of the one you were born into. The nightmare began 3 hours earlier in the back of Richard's Escalade. The leather seats smelled like expensive cologne and new money. I was squeezed in the middle seat between Tiffany and Josh, who were busy playing games on their iPads. I sat with my hands folded in my lap, trying to make myself as small as possible. My mother sat in the front passenger seat, laughing at everything Richard said. She had spent the last 6 months transforming herself. The woman who used to clip coupons and work double shifts at the diner was gone. In her place was Cynthia, a woman who wore silk scarves and spoke with an affected accent she had picked up from watching reality TV. Richard was a real estate developer who loved two things: money and people who admired his money. He tolerated me the way one tolerates a stain on a rug that cannot be removed. We pulled up to the departures curb at Terminal 4. The chaos of the airport usually excited me, but today I felt a knot of dread in my stomach. "Everyone grab your bags," Richard commanded, popping the trunk. I scrambled out and went to the back of the SUV. There were 5 suitcases. 4 of them were hard-shell designer luggage, gleaming under the afternoon sun. The 5th was a black garbage bag with my clothes inside, because Richard said my old duffel bag was too embarrassing to be seen with. I reached for the bag, but Richard slammed the trunk shut before I could grab it. "Leave it," he said, his voice low so the skycaps could not hear. "You do not need it where you are going." I looked at my mother, confused. "Mom, my clothes are in there." Cynthia did not look at me. She was busy tipping the porter to take the 4 designer bags. "Just come inside, Lily. We need to talk," she said, her voice tight. We walked into the terminal. The air conditioning hit my face, but I was already shivering. We did not go to the check-in counter. Instead, my mother led me away from the group toward a row of vending machines near the restrooms. Richard stayed back with Tiffany and Josh, buying them magazines and candy. Cynthia knelt down in front of me. She rarely did this anymore. For a second I thought she was going to hug me. "Listen to me closely, Lily," she began, her hands gripping my shoulders a little too hard. "This trip to Bali is very expensive. It is a special time for Richard and me and his children to bond, to become a real family." I nodded, my throat dry. "I know, Mom. I will be good. I promise I won't annoy Josh." She shook her head, a look of annoyance crossing her perfectly made-up face. "No, Lily, you do not understand. You are not coming." The noise of the airport seemed to drop away. The announcements over the intercom, the rolling wheels of suitcases, the chatter of thousands of people, it all went silent. "But you said we were all going," I whispered. "You said it was a family vacation." "It is a family vacation," she hissed. "A vacation for my new family. You are a reminder of a past I am trying to move on from." Richard thinks it would be better if you stayed behind. He thinks you are difficult. I am not difficult, I said, tears stinging my eyes. I get straight A's. I do all the chores. It does not matter, she cut me off. She reached into her purse and pulled out the cash. $200. Here. This is for a taxi and food. Go to Aunt Helen's house. The key is under the flower pot. But Aunt Helen moved. I said, panic rising in my chest. She lives in Ohio now. You know that. You sent her a Christmas card. Cynthia stood up, dusting off her knees. Well then, figure it out. You are a smart girl. Find a neighbor. Call someone. Just do not be here when we get back. She started to walk away, but I grabbed her hand. Mom, please do not leave me. I do not have a phone. You took it. I confiscated your phone because you were spending too much time on it, she said, pulling her hand away. It is in my suitcase. You can have it back when I return if you have behaved. Richard walked over, then looming over me. He was a big man with a red face and eyes that always looked cold. Is there a problem here, Cynthia? He asked, checking his gold watch. We are going to miss the lounge access. No problem, my mother said, fixing a smile on her face. Lily was just saying goodbye. Richard leaned down close to my ear. Listen to me, you little brat. If you make a scene, if you cry or scream or try to follow us, I will call the authorities. I will tell them you are uncontrollable. Do you know what happens to kids like that? They go to juvenile detention centers. They get locked up. So you take that money and you disappear. Do you understand? I nodded, terrified. I had seen movies about those places. Good. Enjoy your summer vacation. He straightened up and put his arm around my mother. They walked toward the TSA checkpoint. Tiffany looked back at me and stuck out her tongue. Josh laughed and high-fived her. I watched them until they disappeared behind the frosted glass barriers. I was 8 years old. I had $200 in my pocket, no phone, no ID, and the clothes on my back. I walked over to a row of plastic chairs and sat down. I sat there for a long time. I watched people rushing by. I watched a father chasing his toddler, giggling as he scooped him up. I watched a mother sharing a sandwich with her daughter. Hunger started to gnaw at my stomach. I looked at the money in my hand. If I spent it on food, I would have less for a taxi. But a taxi to where? Our house was locked. I did not have a key. Mrs. Peterson next door was in Florida for the winter. The sun began to set through the massive glass windows of the terminal. The airport lights flickered on. The crowds changed from business people to tired families on red-eye flights. A security guard walked past me twice. The second time he slowed down, looking at me. I remembered Richard's threat. Juvenile detention. Locked up. I slid off the chair and walked toward the bathroom, trying to look like I knew where I was going. I hid in a stall for 20 minutes, my heart pounding against my ribs. When I came out, I realized I had left my backpack on the chair. I ran back, but it was gone. Security had probably taken it. Now I truly had nothing. Except for one thing. I was clutching my teddy bear, Mr. Paws. He was old and missing one eye and his fur was matted. Richard had tried to throw him in the trash 3 times, but I always fished him out. My mother hated him because my biological father, David, had given him to me right before the divorce. Your father is a drunk and a loser, Cynthia always told me. He abandoned us because he did not want a daughter. He never paid a dime of child support. That is why we are poor. That is why we need Richard. I hugged Mr. Paws tight, burying my face in his scruffy neck. I felt something crinkle inside him. There was a hard lump in his stomach seam. I had felt it before but never thought much of it. Tonight, driven by anxiety, I picked at the seam. The thread gave way. I pulled out a small piece of plastic. It was an old business card laminated to protect it from the wash. On one side was a picture of a younger version of my father smiling. On the back, in handwriting that I barely recognized, was a note. Lily, if you ever need me and Mom won't let you call, find a phone and dial this number. I will always come for you, no matter what. Love, Dad. I stared at the card. My mother said he didn't want me. She said he was a deadbeat. But deadbeats don't laminate emergency contact cards inside teddy bears. I looked around. I needed a phone. I couldn't ask the police or security. I needed a stranger. I saw a woman sitting near the charging station. She was black, dressed in a sharp navy blue power suit, typing furiously on a laptop. She looked important, scary even, but she had a kindness in her eyes when she paused to sip her coffee. I approached her slowly. "Excuse me, ma'am." She stopped typing and looked down. Her expression softened immediately. "Hey there, little one. Are you lost?" I shook my head. "No, ma'am. I mean, yes. I mean, I need to make a phone call. It is an emergency." She looked around. "Where are your parents, honey?" "They left," I said simply. "They went to Bali." Her eyebrows shot up. "They left you here. Alone." I nodded. "Please, ma'am. I have money." I tried to hand her a $20 bill from my wad. She gently pushed my hand away. "Keep your money, sweetheart. Here." She handed me her sleek smartphone. I looked at the laminated card and dialed the number with shaking fingers. It rang once. Twice. "Hello?" A deep voice answered. It sounded tired. "Dad?" I whispered. There was a silence on the other end. A silence so heavy it felt like the air had been sucked out of the terminal. "Lily." The voice cracked. "Is that you?" "Dad, Mom left me. I am at the airport." "She went to Bali with Richard." "Oh my God." The voice turned from shock to a terrifying rage. "Where are you? Exactly where are you?" "JFK Terminal 4, near the bathrooms by the food court. Listen to me, Lily. Do not move. Do not talk to anyone else. Stay with the lady who let you use the phone. Put her on." I handed the phone back to the woman. She listened for a moment, her face going from confused to serious to furious. "Yes, I understand," she said, her voice sharp and professional. "I am a partner at a law firm here in the city. I will stay right here with her. No, nobody is taking this child anywhere until you arrive. Yes, I will keep her safe." She hung up and looked at me. Her name was Maya, she told me. She bought me a warm meal and sat with me, forming a protective wall between me and the rest of the world. I thought my father would come in a car. I thought it would take hours. 40 minutes later, two men in dark suits approached us. They had earpieces. Maya stood up, ready to fight, but then a man ran toward us. He was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, but he commanded the space like a general. He looked older than the picture on the card, but it was him. "David." "Lily," he shouted, dropping to his knees and sliding across the polished floor to wrap his arms around me. He held me so tight I could barely breathe, but it was the safest I had ever felt. He smelled like cedar and rain. "I got you," he sobbed into my hair. "I got you. I never stopped looking for you." He pulled back and looked at me, checking for injuries. Then he looked at Maya. "Thank you," he said, his voice trembling. "You have no idea." "I think I do," Maya said, handing him her card. "If you need representation for what comes next, call me. This looks like a war is starting." "It is not starting," my father said, standing up and picking me up effortlessly. "It is ending." We walked out of the terminal, not to the taxi stand, but to a side exit where a black SUV was waiting on the tarmac. "We are not driving home, Dad?" I asked. "No, honey," he said, buckling me in. "We are flying." We drove a short distance to a private hangar. Sitting there gleaming under the floodlights was a Gulfstream jet. My jaw dropped. "Mom said you were broke." My father let out a humorless laugh. "Your mother says a lot of things." Once we were in the air, wrapped in cashmere blankets with hot cocoa in front of me, my father opened his briefcase. He pulled out a stack of papers thick as a dictionary. "Look at this, Lily." They were bank transfer receipts. $5,000. Every single month for 5 years. "I sent this for you," he said. "For your clothes, for your school, for your food." I looked at the total. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars. She told me you didn't pay anything. She said we had to eat hot dogs because you were a deadbeat. He flipped to the next section. Letters. Hundreds of them. Returned to sender. Unopened. I wrote to you every week. She sent them all back. She got a restraining order claiming I was dangerous so I couldn't come near the school. She told the court I was an addict. I had to take drug tests every month just to keep my visitation rights, which she still blocked. He was shaking with anger, but he kept his voice gentle for me. She erased me, Lily. She took my money, used it to fund her new life with Richard, and erased me. I looked at the receipts. The dates matched up with when Mom got her new teeth, when she bought the designer bags, when she started dating Richard. She sold me, I whispered. She used the money you sent to make herself look rich so she could catch Richard. And now that she has him, my father said, his eyes cold as ice, she thinks she doesn't need the income anymore. She thinks she can just discard you. He looked out the window at the clouds below. We are going to Seattle, Lily. That is where I live. That is where my company is. You have a company. Yes, it is called Horizon Tech. I gasped. I knew that name. It was on the back of the iPads Tiffany and Josh were playing with. You own Horizon. I do. And starting tomorrow, we are going to use every resource I have to make sure Cynthia never hurts you again. We landed in Seattle just as the sun was rising. A car took us to a house that looked like something from a movie. It was glass and steel, perched on a cliff over the ocean. But we didn't rest. Not yet. My father called a team of people, lawyers, investigators, and he called Maya, the lady from the airport, who it turned out was one of the fiercest family law attorneys in New York. We have a 2-week window, my father told them. Cynthia's in Bali. She thinks Lily is at a non-existent aunt's house. She thinks she has won. We are going to clear the board. The next day we flew back to my mother's town. But this time, we didn't go to the airport. We went to the mansion she lived in with Richard. We had a court order signed by a judge who was horrified by the airport security footage my father's team had obtained. The order allowed us to retrieve my personal belongings. But my father did more than that. Since the lease on the house was technically paid for using commingled funds from my child support, a financial forensic accountant had proved this in record time. My father exercised a legal loophole. We entered the house. It smelled like them, like Richard's cigars and my mother's floral perfume. We went to my room. It was a tiny box room near the garage while the stepkids had suites upstairs. Pack everything, my father told the movers. We didn't just take my clothes. We took everything my child support had bought. The TV in the living room, the expensive rug, the art on the walls. When we were done, my room was bare. Not a speck of dust left. I took a piece of paper and a marker. I wrote a note and taped it to the wall. Mom, you told me to figure it out. I did. I called Dad. Don't look for me. My father taped his own document next to it. It was a lawsuit. Demand for repayment of misappropriated funds, $1.2 million, plus interest. We locked the door and left. When we got back to Seattle, I started my new life. A life where I wasn't a burden. A life where I was the daughter of a billionaire who loved me more than anything. But the real show was about to begin. 2 weeks later, my mother's vacation ended. I can only imagine the scene. They land, they drive home, they are tanned and happy. They try to open the front door. The key doesn't work. My father had the locks changed because technically, my name was on the lease as a dependent, and he was now my sole guardian. They finally get in using the garage code. They walk into a half-empty house. My mother runs to my room to scream at me for not cleaning. She opens the door. She sees the empty room. She sees the note. She sees the lawsuit. And then her phone rings. It is Richard. His credit cards have been declined. His bank accounts are frozen. Because the investigation into my mother's fraud had triggered an audit of Richard's finances too. And it turned out he wasn't as rich as he pretended to be. He was laundering money, and he had been using my child support to cover his tracks. My mother stood in that empty room realizing that the daughter she threw away was the only thing keeping her house of cards standing. And now I was gone. And I had the checkbook. The voice on the other end of the line was deep and steady, like the rumble of distant thunder. "Hello," he said again when I did not answer immediately. "Who is this?" I gripped the phone with both hands, my knuckles turning white. I tried to speak, but my throat felt like it was closing up. All the fear and hunger and exhaustion from the last 6 hours crashed into me at once. I let out a small broken sob that I could not hold back. "Lily." The voice on the phone changed instantly. It went from polite curiosity to something sharp and urgent. "Is that you? Is that my Lilybug?" The nickname hit me like a physical blow. Nobody had called me that in 5 years. Not since the day he left. Not since Mom told me he did not love us anymore. I squeezed my eyes shut, and tears leaked out, hot and fast. "Daddy," I whispered. The word felt strange in my mouth, like a language I had forgotten how to speak. "Daddy." Mom left me. I heard a noise on the other end, like a chair being knocked over or a glass breaking. Then there was a rustling sound, as if he was moving very fast. "I am here, Lily," he said, his voice shaking in a way that scared me, but also made me feel warm inside. "I am right here. Listen to me very carefully. I never left you. I never stopped wanting you. I have kept this phone number for 5 years. I never changed it. I paid the bill every single month just hoping that one day you would find a way to call me." He breathed in jaggedly on the other end. "Where are you?" he asked. "Are you safe? Where is your mother?" "She is on a plane," I said, my voice trembling. "She went to Bali with Richard and his kids. She said I could not go because I am not real family. She gave me $200 and told me to take a taxi to Aunt Helen's house, but Aunt Helen moved away. I am at JFK Airport, Daddy. I am at gate 24 near the food court. I do not have a ticket. I do not have anywhere to go." There was a silence on the line that felt heavy and dangerous. It was the silence of a storm before it breaks. When he spoke again, his voice was terrifyingly calm, but it was not directed at me. It was the voice of a man who was about to burn the world down to get to his child. "She left you alone at an international airport with cash and no way home." "Yes," I squeaked. "Okay, Lily. Okay. You did the right thing calling me. You are so brave. You are the bravest girl in the world. Now I need you to do something for me. Is the lady who let you use her phone still there?" I looked up at Maya. She was watching me, her coffee cup forgotten in her hand, her expression filled with concern. She nodded at me. "Yes, she is right here," I said. "Put her on the phone, please," he said. I handed the sleek smartphone back to Maya. She took it, looking at me with a question in her eyes before bringing it to her ear. "Hello, this is Maya," she said, her voice professional but guarded. "I am an attorney based here in New York. I found your daughter sitting alone near the vending machines." I watched Maya's face as she listened to whatever my father was saying. Her eyes went wide. She stood up straighter, smoothing down her suit jacket, even though he could not see her. "Yes, Mr. Vance," she said, and her tone shifted from guarded to respectful. "Yes, I know who you are. Everyone knows who you are." She listened again for a long moment. She looked down at me, and for the first time, she did not just look pitying. She looked fiercely protective. "You do not need to worry, sir," she said firmly. "I am not going anywhere. I will sit right here with her. No, I will not let security take her. If anyone tries to move her, I will represent her as her legal counsel immediately." She reached into her bag and pulled out a notepad and a pen, scribbling something down. "Yes, I have the tail number," she said. "Gulfstream G650. I will watch for your security team. How far out are you?" She paused, listening. "Understood. We will be right here." Maya handed the phone back to me. Her hands were shaking just a little bit. "Your daddy wants to talk to you again, sweetie," she said. I put the phone back to my ear. "Daddy. I am coming. Lily." he said. I am getting on a plane right now. I am in Seattle, but my jet is fueled and ready. I will be there as fast as I can. It is going to take a few hours, but you are not alone anymore. Maya is going to stay with you. And I have people in New York close by. They will be there in 20 minutes to stand guard until I arrive. People I asked, confusion clouding my mind. Mom said you were broke. She said you lived in a trailer. My father let out a short, bitter laugh. Your mother lied about a lot of things, Lily. I am not broke. I am going to use everything I have to fix this. Listen to me. Do not go with anyone except Maya or the men who will identify themselves with the code word Lilybug. Do you understand? Yes, Daddy. I love you, Lily. I love you more than anything. Stay put. I am coming. The line went dead, but for the first time in hours, the silence did not feel empty. It felt like a promise. I handed the phone back to Maya. She looked at me with a strange expression. Do you know who your father is, honey? She asked. He is David, I said. He used to make pancakes on Sundays. Maya let out a long breath. Your father is David Vance. He owns Horizon Tech. He is one of the wealthiest men in the country. I stared at her. Horizon Tech. The name sounded familiar. I looked down at the iPad Josh had been playing with in the car earlier. It had a logo on the back, a stylized H that looked like a sunrise, Horizon. My mother had abandoned me to go on a vacation paid for by a man who sold condos. She had no idea that the man she had erased from my life, the man she called a loser, could probably buy the entire airline she was flying on. 20 minutes later, two men in dark suits appeared at the entrance of the food court. They were huge with earpieces and serious faces. They scanned the room until their eyes landed on me and Maya. They walked over and the crowd seemed to part for them. One of them knelt down on one knee. He looked scary, but he smiled at me. Are you Lily? He asked. I nodded, shrinking back against Maya. Your father sent us. The code word is Lilybug. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. We are here to make sure you are safe until Mr. Vance arrives, the man said, standing up and taking a position next to our table. His partner stood on the other side. They folded their arms and looked outward, creating a human shield between me and the rest of the world. People were staring. Travelers were whispering. I saw a security guard start to walk over, look at the suits the men were wearing, and decide to walk the other way. I sat there clutching my teddy bear with the secret heart, feeling something I had never felt before. I felt important. I felt protected. Maya bought me another hot chocolate and a sandwich. She sat with me while I ate, asking me questions about school, about my favorite books, distracting me from the clock. Hours passed. The terminal got quieter. The cleaning crews started to come out. And then I saw him. He did not come through the main security doors. He came through a side door flanked by airport officials who were practically running to keep up with him. He was wearing a wrinkled t-shirt and jeans, like he had gotten dressed in 10 seconds. His hair was messy. He looked nothing like the polished businessman in the laminated photo. He looked wild. He looked desperate. He scanned the area, his eyes frantic until they locked onto me. Lily. The sound of my name tore out of his throat like a raw wound. I jumped off the chair. I ran. I dropped my bear, I dropped my bag, and I ran as fast as my legs could carry me. Daddy? He met me halfway, dropping to his knees on the hard tile floor, not caring who was watching. I slammed into him, and his arms wrapped around me so tight it squeezed the air out of my lungs. He smelled like rain and cedar and memories I thought I had lost. He was shaking. His whole body was trembling against mine. He buried his face in my neck, and I felt wetness. My big, strong father was crying. I got you, he choked out over and over again. I got you, baby. I have got you. I am never letting you go again. He pulled back to look at me, framing my face with his large hands. He checked my arms, my face looking for injuries. His eyes were red and full of a pain so deep it scared me. I am so sorry, he whispered. I am so sorry I was not there to stop her. I am okay, Daddy, I said, wiping a tear from his cheek. I knew you would come. The card said you would come. He pulled me back into a hug, lifting me off the ground like I weighed nothing. He stood up, holding me against his hip, like I was a toddler again. He turned to Maya, who was standing by the table wiping her own eyes. David Vance walked over to her. He extended his hand. Thank you, he said, his voice rough. You saved my daughter. I owe you everything. Maya shook his hand. You owe me nothing, Mr. Vance. Just take care of her. I will, he promised. But I never forget a debt. You have a card. Maya handed him her business card. He put it in his pocket without looking at it. If you ever need anything, he said. Anything at all. You call me. He turned to the two men in suits. Get her bag. And the bear. Do not forget the bear. We walked out of the airport not like refugees but like royalty. The airport staff held doors open for us. A black SUV was waiting right on the tarmac, engines running. As he buckled me into the back seat of the car, I looked up at him. Where are we going, Daddy? We are going home, Lily, he said, climbing in beside me and pulling a soft blanket over my legs. We are going to Seattle. And then we are going to make sure your mother never has the power to hurt you ever again. The car sped off toward the private airfield where his jet was waiting. I leaned my head on his shoulder and closed my eyes. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I fell asleep without being afraid of waking up. The black SUV did not take us to a house or a hotel. It drove us straight across the tarmac to a private airfield that sat on the edge of the water. The sun was setting, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange that matched how my heart felt. I expected another car, maybe a rental, but as we rounded the corner, I gasped. Sitting there with its rotors slowly spinning was a helicopter. It was sleek and black, like a panther waiting to pounce. Standing next to it was a woman who looked like she could command the tides to stop if they inconvenienced her. She was tall, with deep dark skin that glowed under the airfield lights. She wore a cream-colored power suit that probably cost more than Richard's car, and her hair was styled in sharp, immaculate braids. She was typing on a tablet, not even looking up as the wind from the rotors whipped around her. David, my father, helped me out of the SUV. He kept his hand on my shoulder, as if he was afraid I would vanish if he let go. We walked toward the woman. She looked up and her expression shifted from terrifying intensity to a warmth that made my knees weak. Maya, he said. David, she replied. Her voice was rich and precise. She stepped forward and hugged him briefly before turning her gaze to me. She dropped to one, squatting in her heels so she could look me in the eye. And you must be Lily, I nodded, clutching my teddy bear. Who are you? I am your Aunt Maya, she said. I am married to your father's brother. I am also the managing partner of Sterling and Vance, one of the biggest law firms in New York. And as of 3 hours ago, I am your personal legal guardian along with your father. She stood up and tapped her tablet. I have already filed the emergency injunctions. The judge was appalled by the airport footage. We have full temporary custody pending the hearing. Cynthia cannot touch you. My father nodded, his jaw tight. Good. Let us get out of here. The jet is fueled. We climbed into the helicopter. I had never been in one before. I had never been anywhere except school and the grocery store. As we lifted off the ground, New York City shrank beneath us, turning into a grid of glittering lights. I looked at my father. He was staring out the window, his hand clenched into a fist on his knee. We landed 20 minutes later at a larger private airport in New Jersey. A massive white plane was waiting. My father called it a Gulfstream G650. It looked like a spaceship. Inside it was quieter than a library. The seats were made of butter-soft leather. There was a bedroom in the back, a kitchen. It was a flying mansion. Once we were in the air, leveling out above the clouds, my father gestured for me to sit at the polished wood table across from him. Maya sat next to me, opening a laptop and starting to work immediately. Lily, my father said, his voice heavy. I need to show you something. I need you to understand why I was not there, why you thought I did not care. He reached down and lifted a battered brown leather briefcase onto the table. It looked old, worn out, unlike everything else he owned. I have carried this with me for 5 years, he said, unlocking the brass clasps. Every meeting, every trip. I never let it out of my sight. He opened the lid. Inside were stacks of paper, neatly organized, color-coded. He pulled out a thick stack of green papers and slid them across the table toward me. Look at those, he said. I picked up the top one. It was a bank transfer receipt. It had a date from last month. The amount was $10,000. I looked at the next one. The month before. $10,000. I flipped through them faster. Every single month for 5 years. $10,000. I did the math in my head. That was $600,000. I stared at him. What is this? That is child support, my father said. Court-ordered support plus extra. I sent $10,000 every single month to the account your mother gave the court. It was supposed to be for you, for your clothes, for your education, for food, for a safe house. I felt like the room was spinning. $10,000 a month. Mom said you never paid, I whispered. She said we had to shop at the thrift store because you were a deadbeat. She said we had to eat cereal for dinner because you drank all your money away. My father closed his eyes for a second as if he was in physical pain. Then he opened them, and they were burning with a cold blue fire. I have not had a drink in 12 years, Lily. Not a drop. And I have never missed a payment. Not once. He reached into the briefcase again. This time he pulled out a stack of envelopes. They were bundled together with rubber bands. There were hundreds of them. Some were pink. Some were yellow. Some were just plain white envelopes. He pushed them toward me. I wrote to you every Friday, he said, his voice cracking. Every single Friday for 5 years. I sent birthday cards. I sent Christmas cards. I sent letters just telling you about my week and asking about yours. I picked up the top envelope. It was addressed to me in my father's handwriting. Across the front in angry red ink was a stamp. Return to sender. Refused. I looked at the next one, and the next, all of them. Refused. She sent them back, I said, my voice trembling. She did not just send them back, Maya said, looking up from her laptop. She filed harassment complaints. She told the family court judge that your father was trying to stalk you. She used these letters telling a little girl that her daddy loved her as evidence that he was unstable. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. I opened one of the envelopes. It was a birthday card from when I turned 10. Inside was a picture of a puppy. Dear Lily, hope you have the best birthday. I miss you so much. I hope you like the new bike I sent money for. Love, Dad. I looked up at him. I never got a bike. I got a pair of socks and a lecture about how grateful I should be. My father reached across the table and took my hand. Where did the money go, Lily? Did you ever see it? I shook my head. No. We lived in a small apartment until she met Richard. We never had anything new. Maya turned her laptop screen around so I could see it. It was a spreadsheet full of numbers and purchases. We traced the account, she said. Her voice was sharp, slicing through the air. Cynthia was smart, but not smart enough. She thought because she commingled the funds we would not be able to track them. But forensic accounting is my specialty. She pointed to a line item. See this. $3,000. The date matches your 10th birthday. I looked at the description. It was not a bike. It was not a toy store. It was a luxury spa in the city. Maya scrolled down. $12,000. The date was 2 years ago. That was when Mom bought her new Hermes bag, I said. She told me she found it at a consignment shop for $50. She said it was a fake. It is real, Maya said. And you bought it. Or rather, your father bought it for her thinking he was paying for your braces. My hand went to my mouth. I never got braces. The dentist said I needed them, but Mom said they were too expensive. She said I would just have to learn to smile with my mouth closed. Richard, my father said, his voice low and dangerous. That is where the rest of it went. Richard is not rich, Lily. He is a fraud. He has been drowning in debt for years. Your mother has been using your child support to pay his mortgage, to pay for his car lease, to pay for those suits he wears. I thought about the mansion, the pool, the way Richard looked at me like I was dirt. He was living off me. Yes, my father said. They both were. You were their paycheck. That is why she fought so hard for custody. That is why she kept me away. If I saw you, if I saw that you were wearing old clothes and living in a tiny room, I would have stopped the payments and gone to court. She needed me to think you were happy and well cared for so the money would keep flowing. And now, Maya added, closing the laptop with a snap, now she has married Richard. She thinks she has secured her bag. She thinks she does not need the child support anymore because she has a husband. That is why she left you. You served your purpose. You were a cash cow, Lily, and she milked you dry until she thought she had a better option. I sat back in the leather seat. The luxury of the plane suddenly felt suffocating. I thought about my mother laughing in the front seat of the car. I thought about her telling me to figure it out. She did not just leave me. She stole my life. She stole my relationship with my father. She stole my childhood. She bought a $12,000 handbag with the money meant to fix my teeth. A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach. It replaced the fear. It replaced the sadness. What are we going to do? I asked. My father looked at Maya. Maya looked at me. A slow, terrifying smile spread across her face. We are going to take it back, Maya said. All of it. We land in Seattle in 4 hours, my father said. We will get you settled. You will see your room, the room I have kept waiting for you. And then, while your mother is drinking cocktails in Bali thinking she has won, we are going to work. Maya pulled a file from her bag. I have already drafted the eviction notice, she said. Since the house payments were made using funds stolen from a minor trust, technically, that house does not belong to Richard or Cynthia. It belongs to the trust. Which means, my father said, looking at me, it belongs to you. I looked at the papers. I looked at the receipts. I looked at the rejected letters. You mean we can kick them out? Maya laughed, a sound that was both beautiful and scary. Oh, honey, we are not just going to kick them out. We are going to strip them bare. By the time Cynthia lands at JFK, she will not even own the luggage she is carrying. She committed fraud. She committed theft. And she abandoned a minor across state lines. That is a federal offense. My father reached out and brushed a hair away from my face. She hurt you, Lily. She made you think you were worthless so she could use you. I am going to spend every penny I have to make sure she realizes that you were the most valuable thing she ever had. I looked out the window at the dark sky. I was not the scared little girl at the airport anymore. I was David Vance's daughter. And I was coming for everything they took. While my mother was sipping a coconut mojito by an infinity pool in Bali, posting selfies with the caption, "Best Life" and hashtags about family and blessings, we were pulling up to her driveway in a convoy that looked like a presidential motorcade. I sat in the back of the SUV with my father and looked at the phone Maya had given me. There was my mother on Instagram. She looked radiant. She looked free. She had absolutely no idea that the ground beneath her feet had already crumbled away. We were parked in front of the mansion she was so proud of. The house she told everyone Richard had bought with his business earnings. The house where I was treated like a servant. It looked different now, smaller, maybe because I wasn't looking at it through the eyes of a scared child anymore. I was looking at it through the tinted window of a billionaire's car, sitting next to a father who would move mountains for me. Behind us was a large, unmarked moving truck. Behind that was a police cruiser. My father did not believe in half measures. Maya stepped out of the vehicle first. She smoothed her skirt, adjusted her glasses, and walked up the driveway with a stack of papers that was terrifying in its thickness. A confused housekeeper opened the door. I recognized her. It was Maria. She had always tried to sneak me extra cookies when Richard wasn't looking. Maya spoke to her calmly, showing her the court order. It was an emergency order signed by a judge just hours ago, granting immediate access to the property, to retrieve the minor child's belongings, and to secure assets tied to an ongoing fraud investigation. Maria looked at the police officer standing behind Maya, then she looked at the convoy. She stepped back and held the door open wide. She knew. The staff always knows. We walked in. The house smelled of lavender and expensive polish. It was silent and cold. David, my father, looked around the foyer. His jaw was set so hard a muscle twitched in his cheek. He walked into the living room. He pointed to the massive white sectional sofa. That he said to the team of movers who had followed us inside. "Take it." One of the movers hesitated. "The sofa, sir." My father pulled a receipt from his pocket. October 14th, 3 years ago. I sent $15,000 for Lily's emergency appendectomy. Cynthia told me the insurance wouldn't cover it. That sofa cost $14,000. The delivery date was October 16th. It was bought with my daughter's pain. Take it. The movers nodded and went to work. We moved through the house like a storm. It was surgical. It was precise. And it was devastating. Maya had the forensic accounting done. She knew exactly where every dime had gone. The 80-inch television in the den. That was my tuition for a private school I never got to attend. Gone. The crystal chandelier in the dining room. That was 5 years of summer camp fees. Gone. We went into the master bedroom. My father opened the walk-in closet. It was filled with designer clothes, handbags, and shoes. "Pack them all," Maya instructed the team. "Every single item with a luxury label. They are evidence of misappropriation of funds. They are assets of the trust." I watched as they boxed up my mother's prized possessions. The Hermes bag. The Louboutins. The silk dresses she wore to parties where she pretended to be a perfect mother. They stripped the room bare. Then we went to the garage. Richard's pride and joy was sitting there under a custom cover. A vintage Porsche 911. He spent more time polishing that car than he ever spent talking to his own children. He loved that car more than he loved anything. My father walked up to it and ripped the cover off. "Check the VIN number," Maya said to one of the investigators. He checked it against his clipboard. "It matches," he confirmed. "Registered to a shell company LLC created by Richard. But the down payment and all monthly installments were drawn directly from the account receiving the child support deposits." My father patted the hood of the car. "It is not his car," he said, his voice cold. "It is Lily's car. He just drove it for her. Tow it." I watched from the garage door as they hooked Richard's beloved Porsche up to a tow truck. I imagined his face when he came home and opened the garage door. It gave me a feeling of dark satisfaction that I knew I should probably feel bad about, but I didn't. Not even a little bit. Finally, we went to my room. It was down the hall past the laundry room. It was the smallest room in the house, originally intended for storage or a live-in maid. I opened the door. It was exactly as I had left it. A twin mattress on a metal frame. A cheap particle board dresser that wobbled. No posters on the walls because Richard said they damaged the paint. No rug on the cold hardwood floor. My father stepped inside and the air seemed to leave the room. He looked at the thin blanket. He looked at the single flat pillow. He looked at the desk that was just a folding card table. He turned away and wiped his eyes. "Burn it," he whispered. "What I asked. All of it," he said, turning back to me, his eyes fierce. "I do not want you to have a single thing from this room. I do not want you to wear these clothes. I do not want you to touch this furniture. It is not good enough for you. It was never good enough for you." "But Dad," I said, looking at my few books stacked in the corner, "these are mine. "We will buy new ones," he said. "We will buy you a library. But we are not taking the dust of this life with us. We are leaving it all behind." He signaled the movers. "Clear it out. Everything. Leave nothing but the walls." It took them 10 minutes. 10 minutes to erase my entire existence in that house. They took the bed. They took the dresser. They took the cheap curtains. They even took the light bulb from the ceiling fixture. When they were done, the room was just a box of air. It echoed when I walked into the center of it. It felt like a tomb, but it also felt like a chrysalis. I had shed my old skin here. Maya walked in holding a piece of paper and a roll of heavy-duty tape. "We need to leave a message," she said. "Legal notice is required, but I think a personal touch is appropriate." She handed me a marker. "Write it," she said. "Write whatever you want." I walked to the far wall. The wall I used to stare at when I cried myself to sleep. The wall that had heard all my prayers that I thought were unanswered. I uncapped the marker. My hand was steady. "Mom," I wrote in big, bold letters. "You told me to figure it out." I did. I called Dad. I signed my name. Lily. Then Maya took the tape and pasted a thick legal document right next to my note. It was a court summons. A demand for repayment of $1.2 million in stolen funds, plus interest, plus damages, plus legal fees. It also included a restraining order barring Cynthia or Richard from coming within 500 feet of me. My father put his arm around my shoulders. "Are you ready to go?" he asked. I looked around the empty room one last time. I thought about the little girl who used to hide in here, afraid to make noise. I thought about the girl who waited at the airport, hoping her mother would turn around. She wasn't here anymore. "I am ready," I said. We walked out of the house, leaving the front door unlocked. There was nothing left to steal anyway. We had taken it all. As we drove away, I pulled up Instagram on the new phone my father had bought me. My mother had just posted a new photo. It was a picture of her and Richard clinking champagne glasses at sunset. "To New Beginnings," she had captioned it. I liked the photo. And then I commented, "See you in court, Mom." I watched the notification pop up. I watched the little typing bubble appear as she started to reply, and then I blocked her. I turned off the phone and looked at my father. He was smiling. "Let's go home, Lily," he said. We drove to the airport, but we weren't going back to the private jet just yet. We had one more stop to make in Seattle, but first we had to get there. The flight home was different. I wasn't in shock anymore. I was angry. But it was a good anger, a clean anger. When we landed in Seattle, my life truly began. My father's house was everything the mansion wasn't. It was warm. It was filled with light. But the most important thing happened 2 weeks later. I was sitting in the kitchen eating breakfast with my father. He had made pancakes again, and they were actually getting better. My father's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and put it on speaker. It was the head of his security team. "They just landed, Mr. Vance," the security officer said. "They are in a taxi heading to the house. Let me know when they get there," my father said. We waited. It took 40 minutes. Then the phone buzzed again. "They are at the door," the officer said. I could hear the audio feed from the hidden cameras my father's team had installed inside the mansion before we left. I heard the front door open. "Honey, we're home," my mother's voice called out. It sounded happy, relaxed. Then I heard Richard. "Where is the TV?" Then silence. "What happened?" my mother screamed. "We've been robbed." "Richard, call the police." I heard footsteps running up the stairs, high heels clicking frantically on the hardwood. "Lily! Lily, where are you?" She ran down the hall. I heard the door to my room slam open, and then I heard it. A scream. Not a scream of fear. A scream of pure, unadulterated rage and realization. She read the note. Then I heard Richard's voice from downstairs. "Cynthia, my cards. They aren't working. The accounts are frozen." My mother was still screaming in my empty room. She was screaming my name. She was screaming my father's name. And then she saw the legal notice. The screaming stopped, abruptly replaced by the sound of paper being ripped off the wall. "You little witch!" she hissed. My father reached over and ended the call. "That is enough," he said. "You do not need to hear the rest." He was right. I didn't need to hear it. I had heard enough from her to last a lifetime. But the story wasn't over, not even close. Because while my mother was standing in that empty house realizing she was broke and homeless and about to be sued into oblivion, I was already planning my next move. I wasn't just going to be the girl who escaped. I was going to be the girl who succeeded. I looked at my father. "Dad," I said, "I want to go to the best school in the country. I want to study architecture. I want to build things." He smiled at me. "Then that is what you will do, Lily, and you will be the best." 16 years later, I proved him right. But my mother wasn't done with me yet. She was like a bad penny always turning up. And when she found out who I had become, she decided to try one last desperate play. But she forgot one thing. I wasn't 8 years old anymore, and I had kept the receipts. All of them. 2 weeks later, the vacation was over. I was safe in Seattle watching the ocean from my bedroom window, but thanks to the security system my father's team had installed, I had a front row seat to the main event. I can picture it perfectly. I can see the black luxury sedan pulling into the driveway of the mansion. Cynthia and Richard stepped out of the car. They looked like a golden couple from a magazine. Their skin was bronzed from the Bali sun. They were wearing matching linen outfits. They were laughing. It was the laugh of people who thought they had gotten away with everything. Richard tipped the driver with a flourish and grabbed their luggage. Cynthia was already walking up the path, fanning herself with a wide-brimmed hat. "It is good to be home," she said. Her voice was light. "I cannot wait to sleep in my own bed. I hope Lily did not make a mess. If there is one dish in that sink, she is grounded for a month." Richard chuckled. "If she is even here. She probably ran off to a friend's house. Better for us." He walked up to the massive oak front door. He pulled out his key ring, the expensive leather fob swinging. He selected the gold house key and slid it into the lock. It did not turn. He frowned. He jiggled it. He pulled it out and tried again. "What is wrong?" Cynthia asked, coming up behind him. "Key is sticking," Richard muttered. He tried to force it. The metal scraped, but the cylinder did not budge. That little brat. She probably broke the lock. Or she changed it to lock us out. "Wait until I get my hands on her." He was about to kick the door when a voice spoke from the shadows of the porch. "I would not do that if I were you, Mr. Sterling." Richard spun around, dropping his suitcase. Cynthia gasped, clutching her chest. Stepping out from the side of the house was a uniformed sheriff's deputy. He was a large man with a stone face, and he was not smiling. Behind him was a woman in a gray suit holding a clipboard. "Who are you?" Richard demanded, recovering his arrogance quickly. "Get off my property." "I am Deputy Miller," the officer said calmly, "and this is not your property. Not anymore." Cynthia stepped forward, her tan fading slightly. "What are you talking about? Of course it is our property. My husband pays the mortgage. Where is my daughter? Is she inside? Did she call the police? That girl is a pathological liar, officer. Whatever she told you is not true." The deputy ignored her. He turned to the woman in the gray suit. "Ms. Davis, if you would." The woman stepped forward. She did not look intimidated by Richard's glare or Cynthia's outrage. She handed Richard a thick stack of stapled papers. "Mr. Richard Sterling and Mrs. Cynthia Sterling, you are hereby served." Richard looked at the papers. "What is this?" "That is a restraining order," Ms. Davis said. "It bars you from coming within 500 feet of Lily Vance. It also bars you from contacting her or her legal guardians, David Vance and Maya Sterling." Cynthia laughed, a high-pitched, nervous sound. "David. David Vance, my ex-husband. He is a broke alcoholic. He does not have custody. I have sole custody." "Not anymore," the deputy said. "An emergency order was granted 2 weeks ago, ma'am, based on evidence of child abandonment and endangerment." "Abandonment!" Cynthia shrieked. I did not abandon her. I left her with resources. She is 15. She is practically an adult. You left an 8-year-old child at an international airport with no way home and no guardian. The deputy corrected his voice hard. We have the security footage, ma'am. We have the witness statements. And we have the footage of you boarding a plane to Bali 20 minutes later. Richard threw the papers on the ground. This is ridiculous. I am calling my lawyer. We are going inside. He reached for the door handle again, but the deputy stepped in front of him, his hand resting casually on his belt. The locks have been changed, sir, by the owner of the property. I am the owner, Richard shouted. No, sir, you are not. The lease was paid for by a trust fund belonging to Lily Vance. The funds were misappropriated. The trust has reclaimed the property. You have been evicted. Evicted, Cynthia whispered. However, Ms. Davis said, checking her clipboard, we have been authorized to allow you a one-time supervised entry to retrieve personal essentials. You have 20 minutes. Anything not removed in 20 minutes will be impounded as evidence in the pending fraud investigation. Fraud. Richard said, his face turning purple. Do you know who I am? Yes, sir, we do. That is why the FBI is currently executing a search warrant at your office downtown. But right now your concern is getting your toothbrush. The deputy unlocked the door with a master key. He pushed it open. After you, he said. Richard and Cynthia stumbled inside. They looked like they had been punched. They walked into the foyer expecting the cool comfort of their mansion. Instead, they walked into an echo chamber. It was empty. Completely empty. The expensive Persian rug that used to cover the hardwood floor was gone. The antique entry table was gone. The mirror where Cynthia checked her makeup every morning was gone. What happened? Cynthia screamed. We have been robbed. You have not been robbed, the deputy said, following them in. The assets were seized. They ran into the living room. The white sofa was gone. The 80-inch TV was gone. The curtains were gone. Even the light bulbs had been taken from the lamps. My father and Maya had been thorough. They had taken everything that could be traced back to the stolen child support money. And since Richard was a fraud who spent every dime he had on appearances, that meant they had taken almost everything. Richard ran to his study. I could hear him shouting, My computer, my files, where is my safe? Seized, Ms. Davis called out from the hallway. Evidence. Cynthia did not care about the files. She ran up the stairs, her heels clacking loudly on the bare wood. She ran past the master bedroom, which was stripped down to the mattress. She ran down the hall to the small room at the end. She burst through the door. Lily, she screamed. But I was not there. The room was just a box of white walls and silence. The bed she had made me sleep on was gone. The cheap dresser was gone. The only thing left in the room was a single piece of paper taped to the center of the far wall. Cynthia walked toward it. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely read it. I know what it said because I wrote it. Mom, you told me to figure it out. I did. I called Dad. Do not ever look for me again. Lily. Cynthia stared at the note. She reached out and touched the paper as if she expected it to burn her. She made a sound, a low, keening wail that started in her chest and ended in a scream of pure frustration. She ripped the note off the wall and crumbled it in her fist. She turned around and ran back into the hallway. Richard, she yelled. Richard, do something. Fix this. Richard was coming up the stairs. He looked older than he had 10 minutes ago. He was holding his phone and his face was the color of ash. I cannot fix it, he said, his voice hollow. What do you mean? Cynthia demanded, grabbing his lapels. Call the bank. Transfer some money. We will sue them. We will buy new things. I cannot call the bank, Richard said. Why not? Because my accounts are frozen, Cynthia. All of them. He held up his phone. The screen showed a banking notification. Account frozen. Federal investigation pending. Cynthia let go of him. She stepped back. What do you mean frozen? I mean they know, Richard said. They know about the shell companies. They know about the laundering. They know I was using your daughter's money to pay the investors. My daughter's money? Cynthia whispered. Yes. That money you were so happy to give me access to. The money you stole from her father. They traced it all, Cynthia. It is over. Cynthia looked at him. Then she looked at the empty house. Then she looked at the crumpled note in her hand. For the first time, she realized what she had done. She had traded her daughter for a lifestyle. She had traded her flesh and blood for a man who was just as hollow as she was. And now the lifestyle was gone. The man was a criminal. And the daughter was the one holding the match that burned it all down. The deputy checked his watch. Time is up, folks. Grab your bags. You need to vacate the premises. But we have nowhere to go, Cynthia said, her voice trembling. That is not my problem, the deputy said. You are smart people. Figure it out. They walked out of the empty house into the cooling evening air. They stood on the driveway surrounded by their designer luggage, looking at the closed door of the life they used to have. Richard's phone rang again. He looked at it. It is Tiffany, he said. She is asking why her credit card was declined at the mall. Cynthia sat down on one of her suitcases and put her head in her hands. From my bedroom in Seattle, I watched the footage from the security camera mounted on the porch. I watched my mother cry. I watched Richard pace back and forth. I thought I would feel guilty. I thought I would feel sad. But all I felt was the warmth of the sun setting over the ocean, and the knowledge that for the first time in my life, I was safe. My father walked into my room. He saw what I was watching on the tablet. He sat down next to me and put his arm around my shoulders. Is it done? I asked. It is done, he said. They cannot hurt you anymore. I leaned into him. What happens to them now? Now, my father said, taking the tablet from my hands and turning it off, now they face the consequences. And we start living. 16 years later, I stood in front of a glass skyscraper in downtown Chicago. The sign out front read, Vance and Associates Landscape Architecture. I was 24 years old. I had graduated top of my class. I had my own firm. I had a father who loved me, and an Aunt Maya who terrified everyone but me. I thought my past was buried. I thought Cynthia and Richard were just ghosts in a memory I tried not to visit. But ghosts have a way of haunting you when you least expect it. I walked into the lobby of my building, my head held high, holding a set of blueprints for the city's new botanical garden. The receptionist looked up, her eyes wide. Ms. Vance, she said, her voice urgent. There is a woman here to see you. She is making a scene. I frowned. Who is it? She says she is your mother. I froze. My mother? She says her name is Cynthia. She looks like she needs help. I handed my blueprints to my assistant. Let her in, I said. I watched the elevator doors open. And there she was. She looked nothing like the woman in the airport. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a worn coat that was too thin for the Chicago wind. Her hair was gray and unkempt. Her face was lined with bitterness and age, but her eyes were the same, calculating, cold. She saw me. She saw the expensive suit I was wearing. She saw the lobby of my building. And she smiled. It was the smile of a wolf spotting a lamb. Lily, she crooned, holding her arms out. My baby. I finally found you. I did not move. I did not smile. What do you want, Cynthia? I asked. She dropped her arms. Her smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. Is that any way to greet your mother? I have been looking for you for 16 years. Your father kidnapped you. He told lies about me. Stop, I said. My voice was calm. My voice was steady. I was not 8 years old anymore. We both know the truth. What do you want? She looked around the lobby. She licked her lips. I heard you were doing well, she said. I heard you came into some money. I earned my money, I said. Well, family helps family, she said, stepping closer. Richard left me years ago. Tiffany is in debt. I am living in a studio apartment, Lily. I need help. I raised you. I sacrificed for you. You owe me. I owe you, I repeated. Yes. You owe me. I want $5 million. And I want you to pay off Tiffany's debts. It is the least you can do after running away. I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had left me at an airport with a shrug. I reached into my purse. I pulled out my wallet. Cynthia's eyes lit up. She thought she had won. She thought I was going to write her a check. I opened the wallet. I reached into the back pocket. I pulled out a small plastic sleeve. Inside was a crisp $20 bill and a faded, crumpled piece of paper. I walked up to her. I took her hand and pressed the plastic sleeve into it. "What is this?" she asked, looking down. "I kept that for 16 years, I said. "It is the $200 you gave me at the airport." "Well, minus the inflation." She stared at me. "That is the price you put on me," I said. "That is what I was worth to you. $200 to make me disappear." I stepped back. "I am returning your investment, Cynthia. We are even." Her face twisted. "You ungrateful little brat. I will sue you. I will tell the press." "Go ahead," I said. "Tell them. Tell them everything. But before you do, you might want to talk to my lawyer." I pointed to the elevators. The doors opened and Aunt Maya stepped out. She was older now, but she looked even more powerful. She was wearing a red power suit that looked like blood and victory. "Hello, Cynthia," Maya said, smiling. "I have been waiting for this." Cynthia looked at Maya. She looked at me. She looked at the $20 in her hand. And then she ran. She ran out of the lobby and into the street. I watched her go. And then I turned back to my work. I had a garden to build. And I had a life to live. A life that belonged to me and no one else. The flashbulbs were blinding, but for the first time in my life, I did not want to hide from them. I stood on the stage of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, holding a heavy crystal award that caught the light like a trapped star. The banner behind me read, "Architect of the Year." I was 24 years old. I was the youngest person ever to win the Green Horizon Award for Urban Landscape Design. My project, the Emerald Ribbon, had transformed a decaying industrial waterfront into a thriving public park system. I looked out at the audience. In the front row sat my father, David Vance. His hair was grayer now, but his eyes still held that same fierce pride I had seen on the private jet 16 years ago. Next to him was Aunt Maya, wearing a gold silk gown that looked like liquid metal. She raised her champagne glass to me and winked. "Thank you," I said into the microphone. My voice was steady. I used to be afraid of taking up space. I used to be afraid that if I spoke too loudly, I would be left behind. But I learned that the only way to build a foundation that lasts is to dig deep and pour it yourself. This award belongs to the girl who stopped waiting to be rescued and started building her own shelter. The applause washed over me. I smiled. I was Lily Vance. I was respected. I was wealthy. And most importantly, I was free. Or so I thought. 30 miles away, in a basement apartment in New Jersey, the air smelled of stale cigarette smoke and cheap wine. The contrast between my world and the world I had left behind could not have been starker. Cynthia sat on a lumpy beige sofa that had seen better days. She was wearing a stained silk robe, the last remnant of the luxury she had briefly stolen. Her face was puffy and lined with premature wrinkles, deepened by bitterness and cheap Chardonnay. Richard was gone. He had divorced her 5 years ago after the legal battles drained the last of the money they had managed to hide. He had left her with nothing but debts and a drinking problem. Now, Cynthia lived with Tiffany. Tiffany was 25 years old and she was currently screaming at her phone in the kitchenette. "I cannot believe my card was declined," she shouted, slamming a hand onto the laminate counter. "It is so embarrassing, Mom. I have a brand deal with that tea company, and I need to buy the product to review it. How am I supposed to be an influencer if I cannot even afford shipping?" Cynthia took a long sip of wine from a coffee mug. "Stop screeching, Tiffany," she muttered. "My head hurts. Just ask your father for money." "Dad blocked my number 6 months ago," Tiffany snapped. "And Josh is in rehab again. We are on our own, Mom. The rent is due in 3 days, and we are $400 short. Cynthia shrugged, turning her attention back to the television. Something will turn up, she said. It always does. I deserve good things. The universe owes me. Tiffany rolled her eyes. She walked over to the pile of mail on the coffee table. It was mostly final notices and collection agency threats. Buried under the envelopes was a glossy magazine she had stolen from the dentist's waiting room earlier that day. Architectural Digest. Tiffany picked it up. She liked to look at the pictures of rich people's houses and pretend she was shopping. She sat down on the floor and started flipping through the pages, ignoring the eviction warning sticking out of her purse. She flipped past a spread on a villa in Tuscany. She flipped past a penthouse in London. Then she stopped. She stared at the page. Her breath caught in her throat. "Mom," she said. Her voice was quiet at first. Cynthia did not look up from the TV. "What is it now?" "Mom, look at this." Tiffany crawled over to the sofa and shoved the magazine into Cynthia's face. "Look at this girl." Cynthia squinted, trying to focus her blurry eyes. "It is just some girl, Tiffany. Move it." "No." "Mom, look closer. Look at the scar on her wrist. The one she got when Josh pushed her off the swing set." Cynthia grabbed the magazine. She looked at the photo. It was a full-page spread of me. I was standing in the middle of my new park, wearing a white hard hat and holding a set of blueprints. I was looking away from the camera, pointing at a structure in the distance. My sleeve was rolled up. The small crescent-shaped scar on my wrist was clearly visible. Cynthia's eyes widened. She scanned the caption. "Rising star Lily Vance transforms the city skyline with her billion-dollar vision." "Lily Vance," Cynthia whispered. She looked at the face in the photo. It was older. It was confident. It was beautiful. But it was me. "It is her," Tiffany screamed. "It is the brat. It is Lily." Cynthia dropped the magazine as if it were hot. "Vance," she said. She took David's name. She read the caption again. "Billion-dollar vision." Tiffany grabbed her phone. She started typing furiously, her long, fake nails clicking on the screen. Lily Vance. Lily Vance architect. Lily Vance net worth. She gasped. "Mom, look at this." She turned the phone screen toward Cynthia. It was an article from Forbes. The headline read, "The Heiress Who Builds." It estimated the Vance family fortune at over $4 billion. And it listed Lily Vance as the sole heir and owner of her own multi-million-dollar firm. $4 billion, Cynthia breathed. The number hung in the air like a spell. She looked around the dingy apartment. She looked at the water stain on the ceiling. She looked at the empty wine bottle. "She owes me," she said. Her voice started to rise. "She owes me everything. I gave birth to her. I raised her for 8 years. I sacrificed my youth for her. She stole our life." Tiffany added, her eyes gleaming with greed. "If Dad had not gotten in trouble because of her dad, we would still be in the mansion. That money belongs to us. We suffered because of her." Cynthia stood up. She swayed slightly, but her eyes were focused for the first time in years. They were focused on a payday. "She thinks she can just forget about me," she said. "She thinks she can live in a castle while her own mother rots in a basement." Tiffany was already looking up the address of my firm. "It says her main office is in Manhattan," Tiffany said. "Vance and Associates. It is in the financial district." Cynthia walked to the small bathroom. She looked at herself in the cracked mirror. She smoothed back her gray hair. She bared her teeth. "We are going to New York," she said. "But Mom, we do not have money for the train," Tiffany whined. "Put it on the emergency credit card," Cynthia commanded. "The one we were saving for medical bills. This is an emergency, Tiffany. This is our winning lottery ticket." She grabbed a tube of red lipstick and applied it aggressively. "That little ungrateful, wretched girl is sitting on a gold mine, and she is going to share, or I am going to burn her reputation to the ground. 2 days later, I was sitting in my corner office on the 45th floor. The view looked out over the harbor toward the Statue of Liberty. It was a clear, crisp morning. My assistant Sarah buzzed the intercom. Tisium, Vance. There is a situation in the lobby. I frowned, pressing the button. What kind of situation, Sarah? There are 2 women here. One of them is claiming to be your mother. She is making quite a disturbance. Security is about to call the police, but she says she has a story for the press if we do not let her up. My hand froze over the paperwork I was signing. My mother. I had not seen her in 16 years, not since the day I watched the video feed of her screaming in my empty room. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine, but it was followed immediately by a heat of pure steel. I stood up and walked to the window. I looked down at the city. I was not a victim anymore. I was a titan of industry. I had built skyscrapers. I had moved Earth. Let them up, Sarah, I said. Are you sure, Ms. Vance? They seem unstable. I am sure. Send them to conference room B, and Sarah call legal. Tell them to bring the file, the big one. I walked into the conference room 5 minutes later. Cynthia and Tiffany were standing by the window, touching the expensive leather chairs with greedy hands. They looked out of place. Cynthia was wearing a dress that might have been fashionable 10 years ago, but was now tight and faded. She had tried to cover the signs of aging with heavy makeup, but it only settled into the cracks. Tiffany was wearing a tracksuit that was trying too hard to look designer, but the stitching gave it away as a knockoff. When I opened the door, they both spun around. Cynthia's face transformed instantly. She put on a mask of tearful joy that I recognized from 1,000 childhood memories. Lily, she cried, holding her arms out. My baby. Oh my God, look at you. She rushed toward me. I did not move. I did not smile. I simply held up one hand, palm out. Stop. The word was not shouted. It was spoken with the quiet authority of someone who is used to being obeyed by hundreds of employees. Cynthia stopped. She blinked confusion, replacing the fake joy. Lily, it is, Mommy. I have missed you so much. Your father, he kidnapped you. He brainwashed you. I have been looking for you every single day for 16 years. I walked to the head of the table and sat down. I did not offer them a seat. Cut the act, Cynthia, I said. Tiffany stepped forward, her phone in her hand, recording. Do not talk to her like that, she snapped. She is your mother. She is sick, Lily. She has a heart condition. She needs care. And you are sitting here in your ivory tower while we starve. I looked at Tiffany. I remembered her sticking her tongue out at me at the airport. I remembered her laughing when Richard locked me in the closet. Hello, Tiffany, I said. I see you are still riding someone else's coattails. Tiffany flushed red. I am a content creator, she spat. And I am going to expose you. I am going to tell the world how you abandoned your sick mother. I leaned back in my chair. Is that why you are here? I asked. To threaten me. No, Cynthia interjected, pushing Tiffany aside. We are here because we are family, Lily. I know we had our problems. I know things were messy, but blood is thicker than water. She walked closer to the table, her eyes scanning my diamond earrings, my tailored suit. I am struggling, Lily. Richard left me with nothing. I gave up everything for you when you were little. I suffered so you could have a better life with your father. I let you go because I knew he could give you money I didn't have. It was a sacrifice. I almost laughed. A sacrifice. She was rewriting history in real time. She truly believed her own lies. So you want money, I said, cutting through the nonsense. Cynthia licked her lips. I want what is fair, she said. I want compensation. For the years of raising you, for the pain of losing you. I want $5 million. And I want you to pay off Tiffany's debts and buy us a condo here in the city. $5 million, Tiffany added. And a public apology. Or I post this video. I looked at them. They were like vultures circling a carcass, not realizing the lion was still awake. You want fair, I asked. Yes, Cynthia said. I reached into my blazer pocket. I pulled out a small plastic Ziploc bag. Inside was a single rectangular piece of paper. It was faded. It was wrinkled. It had been folded and unfolded 1,000 times. I slid it across the polished mahogany table. What is this? Cynthia asked, looking down at it. It is a $20 bill, I said. She frowned. I do not understand. It is the change, I said. From the $200 you gave me at JFK Airport. Cynthia went still. You told me to figure it out, I said. You gave me $200 to last me the rest of my life. You valued my life at $200, Cynthia. I stood up. I kept this bill for 16 years. I looked at it every time I got an A in school. I looked at it when I graduated college. I looked at it when I signed my first $1 million contract. It was my motivation. It was the physical proof of exactly what I was worth to you. I walked over to her. She smelled like old perfume and desperation. I am returning your investment, I said. I picked up the plastic bag and tucked it into her hand. Here is your $20. We are even. Cynthia stared at the bag. Then she looked up at me and her face twisted into a mask of pure ugliness. You ungrateful little witch, she hissed. I should have left you in a dumpster instead of an airport. There it is, I said, smiling. There is the mother I remember. Tiffany raised her phone higher. I got that on camera, she screamed. You are done. You are cancelled. Just then the door opened. Aunt Maya walked in. She was 50 now, but she looked more dangerous than ever. She was flanked by 2 security guards and a man in a dark windbreaker that said FBI. Hello, Cynthia, Maya said smoothly. You have aged terribly. Cynthia gasped and took a step back. You. Yes, me, Maya said. And I brought friends. The man in the windbreaker stepped forward. Cynthia Sterling, he said. It is Miller now, she stammered. I went back to my maiden name, Cynthia Miller, the agent corrected. You are under arrest. Arrest! Cynthia shrieked. For what? For Social Security fraud, tax evasion, and violation of a federal court order regarding the repayment of misappropriated trust funds, the agent listed. We have been looking for you for a while. It was very kind of you to walk right into a building owned by the daughter you defrauded. He pulled out a pair of handcuffs. Tiffany tried to run for the door, but the security guards blocked her path. And you must be Tiffany, the agent said, looking at her. We have a warrant for your arrest as well. Credit card fraud and identity theft. Using your stepsister's social security number to open lines of credit is a federal crime, young lady. Tiffany dropped her phone. It hit the carpet with a dull thud. No, she wailed. Mom told me it was okay. She said Lily owed us. Cynthia was already in cuffs. She was screaming. She was cursing me. She was cursing David. I watched them being dragged out of my conference room. Cynthia looked back at me one last time. I am your mother, she screamed. You owe me. I looked at her calm and cold. I paid you, I said, pointing to the $20 bill lying on the table where she had dropped it. Keep the change. The door closed. The room was silent. Maya walked over and hugged me. You okay, kiddo? She asked. I looked out the window at the Statue of Liberty, standing tall in the harbor. I am perfect, Aunt Maya, I said. I picked up the $20 bill. I walked to the shredder in the corner of the room. I fed the bill into the machine. I watched it turn into confetti. It was over. I went back to my desk. I had a park to design. I had a city to build, and I had a life that was entirely my own. 2 days after discovering my identity in a magazine, my mother decided to make her grand entrance. I was on the 45th floor reviewing blueprints for the new botanical gardens when the call came from the front desk. The receptionist sounded terrified. She told me there was a woman in the lobby screaming that she was my mother and that she was being prevented from seeing her stolen child. Security was about to remove her, but she had attracted a crowd. People were filming. I felt a cold calm wash over me. This was the moment I had been waiting for since I was 8 years old. I stood up and smoothed the front of my tailored white suit. I checked my reflection in the glass window overlooking the Manhattan skyline. I did not look like a victim. I looked like a CEO. I told the receptionist to let her stay and that I was coming down. I took the private elevator. As the numbers counted down, I breathed in slowly. I remembered the feeling of the hard plastic chair at JFK Airport. I remembered the hunger. I remembered the back of her head as she walked away. When the elevator doors slid open, the noise hit me first. Cynthia was putting on the performance of a lifetime. She was standing in the center of the marble lobby, wearing a coat that looked deliberately tattered and shoes that were scuffed. She had clearly dressed the part of the grieving destitute mother. Tiffany was standing next to her holding up her phone, live-streaming the entire spectacle to whatever followers she had left. Cynthia was wailing. She was grabbing the arm of a passing businessman, sobbing about how her baby was stolen by a billionaire. She saw me step out of the elevator and the theatrics kicked into high gear. "Lily!" she screamed, her voice cracking perfectly. "Oh my God, Lily!" She rushed toward me, her arms wide open, tears streaming down her face. "My baby," she cried. "I have found you. I have finally found you." The entire lobby went silent. Employees stopped at the turnstiles. Couriers paused mid-stride. Everyone was watching the reunion of the century. Cynthia threw herself at me, but I stepped to the side. She stumbled but caught her balance, turning to look at me with wounded eyes. "Lily, why are you acting like this? It is Mommy. Your father, he kidnapped you. He told me you were dead. He hid you from me for 16 years. I have been searching for you every single day. I have not slept. I have not eaten." She reached for my hand, but I crossed my arms. I looked down at her. Up close, I could see the cracks in her performance. Her eyes were not looking at my face. They were darting to the diamond studs in my ears. They were scanning the expensive fabric of my suit. She was not looking for a daughter. She was looking for an ATM. Tiffany moved closer, creating a better angle for her camera. "Look at her," Tiffany narrated to her phone. "She is so cold. Our poor mother is falling apart and she just stands there. This is what money does to people, guys. It turns them into ice." I looked at Tiffany, then back at Cynthia. "Are you finished?" I asked. My voice was not loud, but it carried through the silent lobby. Cynthia blinked. She dabbed at her eyes with a dirty tissue. "Finished." "Lily, I am just so happy you are alive. I want to take you home. I want to be a family again. I forgive you for running away. I forgive your father for brainwashing you." I let out a short, dry laugh. "You forgive me?" "Yes, baby. A mother's love is unconditional." I took a step closer to her. I invaded her personal space until I could smell the stale alcohol on her breath beneath the mints she had eaten. "Cut the act, Cynthia," I said. She froze. The weeping stopped instantly. Her eyes narrowed just a fraction. "I do not know what you mean. I know exactly why you are here. I know you are broke. I know Richard left you. I know Tiffany is drowning in debt. You did not come here for a reunion. You came here for a payout." Cynthia straightened up. She dropped the hunched posture of the grieving mother. She looked at the security guards who were watching closely. She looked at the people filming with their phones. She leaned in close so only I could hear. "You are right," she hissed. "I am broke, and you are sitting on a mountain of gold that belongs to me." "There it is," I said. "The truth." She smiled a tight, ugly smile. "I gave birth to you. I raised you. I sacrificed the best years of my life for you. Do you have any idea how much you cost me? You owe me, Lily. You owe me for every meal I fed you. You owe me for every diaper I changed." "So how much?" I asked. She licked her lips. $5 million. I raised an eyebrow. 5 million. "And you pay off Tiffany's credit cards," she added. "And you buy us a condo. Upper East Side, 2 bedrooms. Do that, and I will go away. I will tell the press we had a lovely reconciliation, and I will leave you alone. And if I do not," she gestured to the crowd, "then I will destroy you. I will go on every talk show." I will tell the world that the famous Lily Vance is a heartless monster who lets her sick elderly mother starve in the street. I will sue you for parental support. I will make sure no client ever wants to work with you again." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had birthed me. I looked at the woman who had looked me in the eye at an airport and told me I was baggage. $5 million, I repeated. "That is the price for your silence. That is the price for my pain," she said. "I carried you for 9 months. I went through labor for you." I nodded slowly. I reached into my blazer pocket. "I might have something for you," I said. Cynthia's eyes lit up. She thought she had won. She thought I was intimidated. She thought the threat of bad publicity was enough to make me open my checkbook. Tiffany moved the camera closer, anticipating the money shot. I pulled out my wallet. It was a simple leather wallet, not flashy but expensive. Cynthia's eyes followed my hands greedily. I opened it. I bypassed the credit cards. I bypassed the cash. I reached into the hidden pocket at the very back. I pulled out a small plastic Ziploc bag. Inside the bag was a single rectangular piece of paper. It was green and gray. It was faded and soft with age. It had been folded and unfolded so many times the creases were white. I held it up. "What is that?" Cynthia asked, frowning. I unzipped the bag. I took out the piece of paper. I unfolded it carefully, smoothing it out on my palm. It was a $20 bill. I held it out to her. "Here," I said. She stared at it. "What is this?" "It is your change," I said. She looked confused. "My change?" "From the airport," I said. "From JFK. Gate 24. 16 years ago." Her face went slack. "You gave me $200, I said, my voice rising just enough so the people in the lobby could hear. "You gave me $200 to last me the rest of my life. You told me to figure it out. You told me to take a taxi to a house you knew was empty." I took a step closer, forcing her to take the bill. "I spent $180 on a taxi and food before my father found me." I lied. I did not want to tell her about the nice lady or the private jet. I wanted her to think about that taxi ride. "So this is what is left. $20. I pressed the bill into her hand. Her fingers closed around it automatically. "This is the value you placed on my life, Cynthia. $200. That was the severance package you gave your 8-year-old daughter when you fired her from your family." She tried to pull her hand away, but I held it tight. "You said I owe you. I do not owe you a dime. You canceled my debt the day you walked onto that plane. But I am a fair businesswoman, so I am returning your investment." I let go of her hand. She stood there holding the old $20 bill. She looked down at it, as if it were a poisonous snake. "You kept this," she whispered. "I kept it," I said. "I looked at it every day. I looked at it when I graduated high school as valedictorian and you were not there. I looked at it when I won my first design competition and you were not there. I looked at it when I built this company from nothing. It was my reminder. It reminded me that if I could survive being thrown away by my own mother for the price of a cheap dinner, I could survive anything." Tiffany had lowered her phone. She looked from the money to me to her mother. The comments on her livestream were scrolling by so fast they were a blur. People were not on their side. The tide had turned. Cynthia crumbled the bill in her hand. Her face twisted into a mask of pure hatred. The grieving mother act was gone. The monster was back. "You ungrateful little brat," she hissed. "I should have left you in a dumpster. I should have never had you. You ruined my figure. You ruined my life." "There it is," I said, smiling. "There is the truth." I turned to the security guards. "Get them out of my building, and if they ever come back, call the police." "You cannot do this," Cynthia screamed, as the guards grabbed her arms. "I am your mother. You have to take care of me. It is the law. Filial responsibility. I will sue you." I turned my back on her. I walked toward the elevator. I stopped and looked over my shoulder. "Oh, and Cynthia," I said. She stopped, struggling for a second, hoping for a reprieve. "Keep the change." The elevator doors closed on her screaming face. I stood in the quiet car watching the numbers climb. I did not feel sad. I did not feel guilty. I felt lighter than air. I went back to my office. I sat down at my desk. I looked at the empty spot in my wallet where the $20 used to be. It was empty. And so was I. But it was a good empty. It was the empty of a room that has finally been cleared of junk, ready to be filled with something new, something beautiful. I picked up my pen. I went back to work. I had a garden to build. I thought the $20 bill was the end of it. I thought that by returning her investment I had closed the book on Cynthia Sterling forever. I was naive. I forgot that a cornered animal does not just curl up and die, it bites. And my mother had very sharp teeth. 3 days after I had security remove her from my lobby, a man in a cheap suit walked into my office. He did not have an appointment, but he had a badge that allowed him to bypass Sarah. He handed me a thick manila envelope. "You have been served, Ms. Vance," he said without emotion. I waited until he left to open it. I expected a nuisance lawsuit, maybe a claim for emotional distress, or a demand for the condo she had screamed about. It was worse. Much worse. It was a lawsuit filed under filial responsibility laws. I called Aunt Maya immediately. My hands were shaking not from fear, but from a rage so hot it felt like fever. "Is this real?" I asked her. "Can she actually do this?" Maya was silent for a moment on the other end of the line. I could hear pages turning. "It is a real law, Lily," Maya said, her voice tight. "In some states, including this one, children can be held financially responsible for their parents' medical and living expenses if the parent is indigent and the child has the means to pay. It is rarely enforced, but it exists. She is claiming she is destitute. She is claiming she has a heart condition that prevents her from working, and she is claiming you have abandoned her to become a ward of the state." I looked at the papers. Cynthia was asking for monthly support payments of $20,000. She wanted back pay for the last 5 years. She wanted me to pay for her health insurance, her rent, and her legal fees. "She is insane," I said. "She abandoned me." "We know that," Maya said. "But the court does not know that yet. All they see is a billionaire daughter and a mother living in a basement. And Lily, she has not just gone to court. Turn on the television, Channel 4. I grabbed the remote and clicked the TV on the wall of my office. I felt the blood drain from my face. There she was, my mother. She was sitting on a beige sofa on a daytime talk show set. The lighting was soft and sympathetic. She looked nothing like the woman who had screamed at me in the lobby. She was wearing a faded cardigan that was 2 sizes too big, making her look tiny and frail. She wore no makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun that highlighted the lines on her face. She held a tissue in her trembling hand. Tiffany sat next to her, wearing a modest black dress, holding her mother's hand and looking at the camera with wide, tearful eyes. The host, a woman known for her hard-hitting interviews, leaned forward with a look of deep concern. "So let me get this straight, Cynthia," the host said. "You raised her alone. You worked 2 jobs. You sacrificed everything to send her to private school. And now that she is the architect of the year, she refuses to help you pay for your heart medication." Cynthia dabbed at her eyes. "I do not want her money," she croaked. Her voice sounded weak and rasping. "I just want my daughter back. I want to know why she hates me. I sold my engagement ring to buy her textbooks. I went hungry so she could eat. And when she met her father, she just changed. He poisoned her against me." The camera zoomed in on Cynthia's face. A single tear rolled down her cheek. "I am sick," she whispered. "I have congestive heart failure. The doctors say stress makes it worse. I went to her office just to see her face, just to hug her, and she had security throw me out like I was trash. She threw a $20 bill at me and told me that was all I was worth." The audience gasped. I could hear the collective intake of breath through the television speakers. Tiffany squeezed her mother's hand and looked into the camera. "My sister has lost her way," Tiffany said. "Money has corrupted her soul. We just want her to remember where she came from. We are praying for her." I turned off the TV. I felt sick. It was a masterclass in manipulation. She had taken the truth and twisted it until it was unrecognizable. She had turned herself into the martyr and me into the monster. Sarah buzzed the intercom. Her voice was shaking. "Ms. Vance, the phones are lighting up. It is the press. It is everyone." I looked at my computer screen. My inbox was filling up by the second. Hate mail, death threats, people calling me an ungrateful brat, people telling me I should rot in hell for abandoning my dying mother. Then the business calls started. The first one was from the board of directors for the City Park project. "Lily, we have seen the interview," the chairman said. His voice was cold. "We are very concerned about the optics of this. The Green Horizon Award is about community and family values. This lawsuit, it looks bad. We are going to have to pause the contract until this is resolved." "Pause the contract," I asked. "That is a $50 million project. You cannot pause it based on a talk show segment. It is not just a talk show," the chairman said. "It is public opinion. People are protesting outside the construction site. They are holding signs that say, 'Honor thy mother.' We cannot have that kind of controversy." He hung up. The next call was from my bank. They were reviewing my lines of credit due to reputational risk. The stock price of Vance and Associates, which had been climbing steadily for 3 years, began to plummet. I watched the ticker on my screen turn red. I was losing millions of dollars by the hour. Clients were canceling meetings, suppliers were suddenly unavailable. My entire empire, the one I had built brick by brick with my own hands, was shaking because of a lie told by a woman who hadn't bought me a birthday present since I was 7. I sat in my chair and stared at the blank TV screen. I felt small. I felt like that 8-year-old girl at the airport again, waiting for someone to come back for me. The door opened. My father walked in. He did not knock. He looked furious. He walked over to my desk and slammed his hand down. "Do not let her do this to you," he said. I looked up at him. "Dad, everyone believes her. The contract is paused. The stock is tanking." "Let it tank," my father said. "We can buy it back cheaper. This is a game, Lily. She is trying to break you. She knows she cannot win in court, so she is trying to win in the court of public opinion. She wants you to panic. She wants you to write a check just to make it stop." I rubbed my temples. "Maybe I should," I said. "Maybe I should just give her the money. It would be cheaper than losing the company." My father grabbed my shoulders and pulled me out of my chair. He marched me to the window. "Look out there," he said, pointing at the city. "You built that. You earned that. If you pay her now, you are admitting she is right. You are admitting you owe her. You will be paying her for the rest of your life. Is that what you want? Do you want to be her victim forever?" I looked at the skyline. I saw the cranes working on my buildings. I saw the green spaces I had designed. "No," I whispered. "Then we fight," my father said. Maya walked in. She was carrying a box of files. She slammed it onto the conference table. "I just got off the phone with the network," Maya said. "I told them if they air part 2 of that interview, I will own their studio by Friday. They are pulling the segment." "That stops the bleeding," I said. "But the wound is already there." "We are going to court," Maya said. "The hearing is in 3 days. Cynthia requested an expedited public hearing. She wants to humiliate you. She thinks you will settle to avoid the spectacle. Let her have it," I said. My voice was hard now. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold clarity. "You want to go to court?" Maya asked. "It will be brutal, Lily. They will drag your name through the mud." "Let them," I said. "She wants a show. I will give her a show." But she forgot one thing. "What is that?" my father asked. "She forgot that you kept the receipts," I said. "And she forgot that I kept the video." I walked over to the safe in the corner of my office. I dialed in the combination. I pulled out a small hard drive. It contained the security footage from JFK Airport 16 years ago. My father had spent a small fortune to track it down and preserve it. We had never shown it to anyone. We had saved it for a rainy day, and it was pouring. I handed the drive to Maya. "She said I abandoned her," I said. "She said she sacrificed everything. Let us see what the judge thinks when he sees her checking her bags and walking away while I sit on a bench and cry." Maya took the drive. She smiled. It was the smile of a shark that just smelled blood in the water. "I will prepare the exhibit," she said. My father put his arm around me. "Are you ready for this, Lily?" I looked at the red ticker on my screen. I looked at the hate mail in my inbox. I thought about my mother's fake tears on national television. "I am ready," I said. "She wants to talk about responsibility. She wants to talk about what children owe their parents. Fine. I will show her exactly what she is owed." I picked up my phone and called my assistant. "Sarah," I said, "get the PR team in here and tell the construction foreman to keep the crews on site. We are not pausing anything." "But Ms. Vance, the protests," Sarah said. "Tell them to protest," I said. "Tell them to make signs. Tell them to scream until their throats are sore. Because in 3 days they are going to feel very stupid." I hung up. I was not going to hide. I was not going to settle. I was going to walk into that courtroom, and I was going to finish what my mother started 16 years ago. She wanted a family reunion. She was going to get one. But it wasn't going to be the one she expected. It was going to be an execution. The courtroom was packed just as Cynthia had requested. She wanted a spectacle. She wanted the world to see the ungrateful billionaire daughter who let her poor sick mother starve. The gallery was filled with reporters, bloggers, and curious onlookers who had been following the drama on social media. Cynthia sat at the plaintiff's table dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. She was wearing a gray wool dress that looked like something a pilgrim would wear. She had scrubbed her face clean of makeup to look pale and wan. Beside her, Tiffany sat scrolling on her phone, undoubtedly checking the viewer count on her live stream. I sat on the defense side. I was wearing a white suit. I did not look at them. I looked at the judge. Judge Harrison was a stern man with a reputation for zero tolerance for theatrics. He looked at the cameras in the back of the room with distaste. The proceedings began. Cynthia's lawyer, a man who looked like he chased ambulances for a living, gave an opening statement that was more of a soap opera script. He talked about the sacred bond between mother and child. He talked about my abandonment of her. He painted a picture of a saintly woman who had given her last crust of bread to her ungrateful offspring. Cynthia sobbed on cue. It was a masterclass in manipulation. Then it was our turn. Aunt Maya stood up. She was not wearing gray. She was wearing a blood-red power suit that commanded attention from every corner of the room. She looked like a warrior queen walking into battle. She did not carry a stack of notes. She carried a single remote control. "Your Honor," Maya said, her voice projecting to the back of the room without a microphone. "We are not here to debate the nuances of the filial responsibility laws. We are not here to argue about income brackets or medical bills. We are here to establish the character of the plaintiff and the true nature of the relationship she claims to cherish." Maya walked to the center of the room. "The plaintiff claims my client abandoned her," Maya continued. "She claims she sacrificed everything for her daughter. I would like to present Exhibit A." She pointed the remote at the large screen mounted on the wall behind the judge. The lights in the courtroom dimmed. The screen flickered to life. The date stamp in the corner read August 14th, 16 years ago. It was grainy security footage, but the image was unmistakable. It was JFK Terminal 4. A gasp ran through the courtroom. On the screen, a younger Cynthia stood by the security checkpoint. She was wearing a bright floral dress and oversized sunglasses. She looked vibrant and healthy. Next to her was Richard, looking impatient. And there I was, 8 years old, wearing a backpack that was too big for me, holding a teddy bear. The courtroom watched in silence as the video played. They watched Cynthia kneel down. They saw her hand me the money. They saw her stand up and check her reflection in the glass. And then they saw her walk away. They saw me reach out. They saw me take a step to follow. And they saw Richard turn back and say something that made me freeze. The video continued. It fast-forwarded. 1 hour. I was sitting on a bench swinging my legs. 2 hours. I was curled up in a ball clutching the bear. 4 hours. I was wiping tears from my face, my shoulders shaking. People in the gallery started whispering. I heard the word monster. I heard the word heartless. Cynthia stood up at her table. That is out of context, she shouted. I told her to go to her aunt's house. She disobeyed me. Maya did not even look at her. She pressed the button on the remote. Exhibit B, Maya said. The screen changed. It was a scanned image of a handwritten ledger. The handwriting was looped and decorative. It was Cynthia's handwriting. This diary was recovered during the initial custody hearings 16 years ago, Maya explained. It details the spending habits of the plaintiff during the time she was receiving child support payments from David Vance. Maya used a laser pointer to highlight specific entries. Entry dated June 4th. Maya read aloud. The brat's dental money, new Chanel bag, $4,000. Entry dated July 12th. Lily's tuition refund. Down payment on Richard's Porsche. $8,000. Entry dated August 1st. Bali trip. Use the emergency fund. Tell Lily her dad stopped paying. The whispers in the gallery turned into angry mutters. The judge was leaning forward, his eyes narrowed. Cynthia's lawyer tried to object. Your Honor, this is ancient history. It has no bearing on her current financial needs. It has everything to do with her credibility, Maya shot back. But if you want something more recent, let us look at Exhibit C. She pressed the remote again. This is an audio recording, Maya said. It was recovered from a cloud server belonging to the plaintiff's former husband, Richard Sterling. It was recorded in Bali 2 days after they left Lily at the airport. Audio filled the courtroom, the sound of waves crashing, the clinking of glasses, and then Cynthia's voice, clear, relaxed, drunk. God, Richard passed the sunscreen. Can you believe we actually pulled it off? Then Richard's voice. Are you sure she is okay? You know, leaving an 8-year-old? Oh, stop worrying. Cynthia's voice laughed. She is resourceful. She is like a roach, she survives everything. Besides, I finally got rid of the burden. Do you know how hard it is to pretend to love a kid that looks just like her father? There was a pause in the recording. Then Cynthia spoke again, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I just hope David does not find her. If he finds her, the money stops. I need that check for a few more years until we get the business off the ground. We have to keep her hidden, Richard. We have to make sure she stays lost. The recording ended with the sound of her laughter. The courtroom was dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. I looked at Cynthia. She was not crying anymore. Her face was a mask of pure terror. She knew she had lost. Judge Harrison stared at her. His face was red with suppressed rage. He looked like he wanted to jump over the bench. He picked up his gavel. Case dismissed, he boomed. The plaintiff's petition is denied with extreme prejudice. He pointed his gavel at Cynthia. Mrs. Miller, in my 20 years on the bench, I have never seen a more appalling display of greed and moral bankruptcy. You argue that your daughter owes you support. The evidence shows that you have extracted every ounce of value from this child since the day she was born. You abandoned her, you stole from her, and now you seek to exploit her success. Cynthia was shaking her head. No, you do not understand. I am sick. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent, a voice boomed from the back of the room. The doors swung open. 6 men in windbreakers marched in. The letters FBI were emblazoned on their backs in yellow. They walked straight to the plaintiff's table. Cynthia Miller, one of the agents said, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. You are under arrest, Cynthia screamed. It was a raw, primal sound. Not for me, not for her lost child, but for herself, for what she shrieked as they grabbed her arms. Federal fraud, the agent said. Tax evasion. And Social Security fraud related to the misappropriation of child support funds across state lines. The investigation was reopened based on new evidence provided by Ms. Vance's legal team. They clicked the cuffs onto her wrists. And Mr. Richard Sterling, the agent added, looking at the back of the room where Richard had been trying to sneak out. 2 agents grabbed Richard before he could reach the door. You are under arrest for money laundering and conspiracy to commit fraud. Tiffany stood up. She held her phone up, recording the arrest. Guys, look at this, she yelled into the camera. My mom is being arrested. This is insane. The system is rigged. Lily Vance paid them off. She turned the camera toward me. Say something, Lily. Tell the world what you did to your own mother. I stood up. I walked toward the railing. I looked at Tiffany. I looked at the phone. I saw the comments scrolling on her screen. Your mom is a monster. Team Lily, you guys are disgusting. Hope you rot in jail. Tiffany saw them too. Her face went pale. The hearts were not flying. The likes were not coming. She was being destroyed in real time by the millions of people she desperate tried to impress. Her sponsors started tagging her in the comments. Brand deals canceled, partnerships terminated. She was toxic. Tiffany lowered the phone. Mom, she whimpered. Mom, they hate us. Cynthia was being dragged toward the door. She looked back at me. Her eyes were wild. Lily, help me. I am your mother. You cannot let them take me. I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had left an 8-year-old girl on a bench to cry. I did not feel anger. I did not feel hate. I felt absolutely nothing. I turned to David. Let us go, Dad. We walked out of the courtroom. The press was screaming my name, but security held them back. David took off his suit jacket and draped it over my shoulders. It was warm. It smelled like cedar and safety. We walked out into the bright sunlight of the New York afternoon. A silver Bentley was waiting at the curb. The driver held the door open. I slid into the leather seat. Aunt Maya got in next to me. David sat in the front. As the car pulled away, I looked out the back window. I saw Cynthia being shoved into the back of a police cruiser. I saw Tiffany sitting on the curb, crying over her phone. I watched them get smaller and smaller until they disappeared around a corner. I turned forward. I looked at the road ahead. You okay, Lily? My father asked, looking at me in the rearview mirror. I took a deep breath. The air in the car was clean. I am fine, Dad, I said. And for the first time in 16 years, I knew it was true. I had paid my debts. I had cleared the ledger. My mother told me to figure it out. And I did. I figured out that I did not need her. I figured out that I was strong. And I figured out that the best revenge was not hate. It was happiness. The Bentley accelerated, merging into the traffic of the city I had helped build. I watched the skyline pass by. My skyline. I closed my eyes and smiled. The vacation was over. My life had finally begun. The most profound lesson from Lily's journey is that our value is never defined by those who fail to see it, even if that person is a parent. Cynthia put a literal price tag on her daughter's life, $200. She believed that by discarding her child, she could purchase a better future. However, she failed to realize that true wealth isn't found in a bank account, a luxury vacation, or social status, but in the integrity of one's character and the strength of one's spirit. Lily's transformation from a frightened 8-year-old at Gate 24 to an Architect of the Year illustrates that rock bottom can be a solid foundation. When she was told to figure it out, she didn't just survive, she thrived. She proved that while we cannot choose where we come from or who brings us into this world, we have absolute power over who we become. Furthermore, the story deconstructs the toxic myth that family is everything, regardless of abuse. Biology is not a binding contract for tolerance. True family consists of the people who show up, like David, who kept his number for 5 years, and Aunt Maya, who fought like a warrior. Conversely, toxic family members like Cynthia act as anchors, dragging us down until we summon the courage to cut the rope. Finally, the story teaches us about the nature of justice. Lily didn't scream or resort to pettiness. She kept the receipts literal and metaphorical. She returned the investment of $20 not out of spite, but as a final act of closure. It was a declaration that she owed her abuser nothing. The best revenge wasn't just seeing her mother face legal consequences. It was building a life so magnificent that her mother's absence became irrelevant. If this story of justice and resilience resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your own experience with overcoming toxic family dynamics in the comments below.